This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what an attack! What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Football Friday, Hockey Friday. Sixers don't even play tonight. So we got a little hockey tonight. Kevin Durso, our Flyers Insider, joins us coming up at 6:20. Plus my picks for the weekend brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Because I'm a friendly guy, I'm not just going to give you football picks tonight. I'm going to give you UFC picks tonight. Because it's the weekend before the weekend of McGregor versus Poirier 2. So I'm going to throw out there a couple of UFC picks for the first UFC card on ABC ever tomorrow afternoon. So we got a lot to get to and a little bit of time to do it. Of course, the text board is open at 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. 609-403-0973. I say the Sixers thing in jest because it was a big deal that they got the win last night. All four of my picks hit last night. That's always a positive. It's always nice to look down and realize that you had some winners. But the real winner wasn't the picks last night. The real winner last night was the fact that the Sixers won a game they're supposed to win. You're playing a team that doesn't have their two best players. Actually, their three best players. If you include Dragic. You're supposed to win that game. And to me, that's the bigger deal of last night. You know, for the Eagles this year, one of the reasons why they were 4-11-1 was because they didn't win the games they were supposed to. Remember when they came out of the bye week, it was, well, you know, if the Eagles win the games they're supposed to, they should win the division. And then they lost to the Giants, and they could have beaten the Browns, and they didn't win those games, and it sent them on this spiral that put us in the position we are now. I don't think you can undervalue that the Sixers won a game they were supposed to win. And I think that's a huge deal to point to. I don't care that Embiid didn't score a ton of points. I don't care that Ben Simmons didn't score a ton of points. Teams win championships, not individuals. You know, we get so bent out of shape over the final stat line because some of you don't actually watch the game. Watch the game. You know what I saw? I saw the Sixers manhandle them. They owned them. They took them out to the woodshed and said, go home, leave, get out of town. We don't like the fact we went to overtime with you. That's a big deal. You were able to go 10 people deep into the bench, and you still had offensive efficiency. Ben Simmons had over 10 assists. Isaiah Joe, he's a really nice player. Tyrese Maxey, he's really fun to watch. Shake Milton came back and had an impact. I still think he got fouled in that 1-3, but I digress. When you watch the game, you realize the 76ers are a good basketball team. And unlike the Philadelphia Eagles, they won the games they're supposed to. And that's what gets overlooked. The Flyers, they gave us a little juice, and they're back in action tonight. You hear it all on 97.3 ESPN at the top of the hour as coverage begins, running it back with the Penguins. But the reason why the Philadelphia Eagles don't have a head coach and everybody is moping and whining about this team is because you didn't win the games they're supposed to. And contrary to popular opinion, guess what? That ain't Howie Roseman's fault. I can't blame Howie Roseman for Carson Wentz throwing interceptions or guys not blocking or receivers dropping balls or guys missing tackles. I can't blame Howie Roseman for who's on the field from play to play. There's a reason why this team is where it is right here, right now. Adam Kaplan was on the Sports Bash earlier today. And I don't think this can be emphasized enough. You want to know why Doug Pederson isn't here? You want to know why this team was 4-11-1? And listen, I was not for firing Doug Pederson at all. But I think Adam Kaplan, NFL Insider, brought up an excellent point just 2 hours ago right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Give Laurie credit for as much criticism as he got, and he deserved a lot of it. I did appreciate he's willing to kind of give some just an outlook on what the differences were. Clearly, they did not agree on the way the team should be built, and starting with the coaching staff. I think that is why Doug got fired. He was fired. There's no question about it.
Doug was fired. There was no question about it. It was because of the coaching staff. Yes, the coaching staff that couldn't get you to the level you needed to be. The coaching staff that failed you coming out of the bye week. The coaching staff that couldn't figure out the Carson Wentz problem. The coaching staff was why Doug Pederson was fired. Plain and simple. Adam Kaplan just said it today on the Sports Bash. And when you think about it, what did the Sixers do this offseason? They got rid of Brett Brown. They brought in Doc Rivers. The coach is not everything in sports, but it's a piece of the pie that cannot be overlooked. And for as much as we want to love on Daryl Morey and hate on Howie Roseman, at the end of the day, those guys are not on the field or on the court. At the end of the day, it's up to the players and the coaches to get the job done. If they don't get the job done, something has to change. Someone's got to be held accountable for. As Adam Kaplan just said there, this had to do with a coaching staff issue. Which is why the other thing that Adam Kaplan said on the Sports Bash today stood out to me the most, because he was asked about, would the Eagles, are they serious? Would they actually hire a defensive-minded coach? Because they interviewed Robert Saleh. They want to talk to Todd Bowles. Listen to what Kaplan said today on the Sports Bash.
The only way a defensive head guy from the defensive side of football, and Gerard Mayo is really smart, and he was a really good football player for the Patriots. He's only been coaching less than 4 years. They would have to have a all-star staff. Like, I'm told that Joe Brady, the Panthers, has a great staff he's trying to put together now. Whether he could get those coaches or not is another story. But Gerard Mayo would have to have this great quarterback developer.
All-star staff, quarterback developer, great coaching staff. Why was Doug Pederson let go? Coaching staff. That's why he was fired. What does Doc Rivers have that you saw last night? He's got a who's who on that bench. Does anybody actually know, who wasn't covering the Sixers day-to-day, who on earth Brett Brown's assistants were? You probably have no stinking clue. I know exactly who Doc Rivers' assistants are. Sam Cassell, Dave Yeager. These are names. These are high-profile guys around the league. One guy won an NBA championship in the league. The other guy's been an NBA coach in 2 different spots. You know who Doc Rivers' coaches are. And guess what? The Philadelphia 76ers won a game last night they were supposed to win. And the Eagles went 4-11 because they didn't win the games they were supposed to win. And now moving forward, the Eagles want a powerhouse coaching staff. If they want to bring in a defensive coach, fine. Who's your coaches? You may not like Howie Roseman. You may be mad at Jeffrey Lurie. But at least they're telling you what they want. Even Alain Vigneault has got some name recognition guys on his bench as a coach. Mike Yo, he's coached in the NHL. People know who he is. Look at Joe Girardi's staff with the Phillies. Those are some bona fide dudes on that staff. It was getting to the point where Doug Pederson was just like, we're good enough the way we are. Press Taylor, yeah. Who the heck is Press Taylor if it wasn't for Chip Kelly giving him a job 7 years ago and his agent being the same agent as Howie Roseman and Doug Pederson? What you're basically saying is Doug is only comfortable with the people who he knows and likes. And that's a problem. And you know what? If that's what it comes down to for the Eagles to move forward, that's what it comes down to. You want a powerhouse coaching staff? Cool, man. But we're going to find out that powerhouse coaching staff adds up. But at least we know exactly where the Eagles want to go after going 4-11-1. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, the text board is open at 609-403-0950. 0973 to get on the conversation, 609-403-0973. Kevin Durso, our Flyers Insider, joins me coming up in about 9 minutes to get more into the Flyers versus Pens, running it back tonight on 97.3 ESPN for a huge 6-3 win over them on Wednesday night. Now, I mentioned the Sixers. They have a weekend coming up ahead of themselves. And when you think about the weekend coming up ahead, you got to think, well, you got that win, right? What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. It looks like you might be without Joel Embiid. That's right. It looks like Joel Embiid might not play the rest of the weekend. Reports coming out that Joel Embiid with right knee pain will not travel to Memphis or OKC. He will remain in Philadelphia to train and receive treatment. John Clark reports, quote, that I'm told this is precautionary and not believed to be serious. According to Keith Pompey, cover Sixers, Mike Scott will not be on the trip either due to right soreness. So they will be without two players because of knee soreness or knee issues. So you got all these good vibes. You beat the Heat 2 straight games. Joel Embiid has a monster game on Tuesday night. You get the win on Thursday. You're going into the weekend, and you got no Embiid. What's the over-under now on Dwight Howard and fouls? That's my initial question. I mean, that guy, he just fouls everybody at this point, doesn't he? Listen, I love Dwight Howard being on the team. But my goodness, some of the fouls that he commits, whoa, I mean, come on. That's just wild. Absolutely. I mean, he gets mad. He gets in, shouting matches with guys. He wants to get into a pushing match with them. I mean, how many games does Dwight Howard foul out over the weekend? Of the 2 games, did he foul out of both of them, one of them? He's got to rack up at least 4 or 5 fouls in each game with no Embiid out there to protect him. Oh, my goodness. The other news that's coming down right now about the Phillies, I feel like we're just popping off with a little bit of news here at the top of the show here. The Phillies are, according to Jason Stark, offering JT Realmuto a 5-year contract worth around $100 million. So that would be about $20 million a year. Interesting. It's an interesting change because we're basically about a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting. And the Phillies took this long to offer JT a significant offer. 5 years, $100 million. I mean, it's the contract that you would expect a guy of his caliber to get. It's the contract that you would expect him to even sign, considering the fact that it's not like he's getting a ton of offers out there in the free agent market. He turns 30 years old before the start of the season. JT Realmuto is a 2-time All-Star, a 2-time Silver Slugger, a Gold Glove winner. He's a legitimate player. He is a legitimate cornerstone type of catcher. I'm just curious to know, why did the Phillies take so long to make this offer? Was it purely because Dombrowski came in here and told them, look, you got to offer this guy this money? It's an interesting conversation. What's the real reason why it took so long? Because I think if we would have offered this from JT from the very beginning, maybe he still wouldn't be out there, floundering in the wind. He wouldn't be out there just, hoping somebody gives him a call or calls him back. Now you wait until January 15th to offer him a contract for a guy who's, if not the best, one of the best catchers in all of baseball. It's a very, very interesting way of doing business, the Philadelphia Phillies. But again, part of it maybe because Dombrowski, he hasn't been here the whole offseason. So maybe he took him some time to come in here, evaluate the situation, and maybe he was the one who finally said, hey, we gotta call this guy and lock him up. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Again, we'll get to my FanDuel Sportsbook picks of the night coming up about 25 minutes from now. We got Kevin Durso, our Flyers insider, joining us next year on 97.3 ESPN to preview the Flyers versus Pens game. Today, of course, game night being brought to you by my friends over at weightliftinghq.com. Listen, if you want to work out from home, maybe you don't want to go to the gym anymore, or you want to not have to go to the gym every day. Maybe you only want to go to the gym 3 days a week, and you're working from home, and it's just more convenient for you to get out a exercise program from home. Well, weightliftinghq.com can give you everything you need, from squat and bench racks, kettlebells, dumbbells, cardio and fitness machines. Let me tell you something. You put a treadmill or an exercise bike in front of the TV, you're going to get some action on that thing. Or maybe looking for resistance bands. Whatever you were looking for your health and fitness goals in 2021, weightliftinghq.com is there to help you get going with your goals. Use my code RADIO10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order for weightliftinghq.com. Promo code RADIO10 for 10% off your entire order at checkout for weightliftinghq.com. They will not just give you a great deal, but they will also deliver it to your home and help you get set up to make sure that you get the best customer service you can find anywhere with weightliftinghq.com. The code RADIO10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order at weightliftinghq.com. Flyers, Pens. Can the Flyers make it 2 straight versus their rivals? We'll ask Kevin Durso next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Flyers hockey coming up at the top of the hour. Flyers run it back with the Penguins. Of course, they won 6-3 on opening night on Wednesday. Back in action tonight. Of course, you hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN and the free 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And, of course, joining us on the Boardwalk on the hotline, covers us for the Flyers at 97.3 ESPN.com. Our Flyers insider, Kevin Durso, joins me now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Kevin, how you doing this evening?
Doing great, Josh. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Well, I think you should be doing great, because after a 6-3 win the other night, I think the Flyers, they probably played above most people's expectations. I was hoping they would win. I didn't expect them to basically just tell Pittsburgh to go away.
Yeah, that third period was a bit of a surprise, and I think that was just them outlasting the Penguins a little bit in that game. As the game went on, Pittsburgh got the better start in the game. They were better in the first period. And in the second period, it really was a period where the Flyers were held to limited shots, but they managed to stay the course and kept that game close. Realistically, I think they would have led through the entire period if not for the turnover by Carter Hart that led to Sidney Crosby's goal that tied the game at 2. And they grabbed that lead back with 1:06 left in the period. And that just set the tone for it. Once Pittsburgh scored, I kind of thought, to tie the game in the third, I thought we were in for a game that might require overtime, quite honestly. And they come back down, they score a goal 3 minutes later, and not only that, but they get the 2 really quick ones 20 seconds apart, and that really put it away at that point. I think that was it.
Rolling it back to a little bit earlier in the game, I think one of the things that stood out to me the most was I didn't know what to expect of Gustafsson when he joined the team. 1-year deal. I mean, he's not Niskanen, that's for sure. And he comes in here and has an immediate impact on the power play, something that you could argue was really what doomed them in the playoff bubble last year.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the key areas to work on, and Gustafsson's really good in that area. That's one of the things that he's thrived on his entire career, is being able to jump into the play, be an offensive presence, and it's especially notable when he's on the power play. And I thought one of the things that I loved, and I pointed it out on Twitter during the game, was that Joel Farabee playing on the left side, along the left side boards, as opposed to down low or in the slot, and having Gustafsson there, he seemed to just know where he was every single time they were out there. So he was just funneling the puck to Gustafsson, really, to get it toward the net, and all the traffic that was there. They definitely had guys near the net, and that's how you get those plays. I thought in the moment that Gustafsson's second one went straight in. From my vantage point, it seemed like it did. It did not, obviously. It barely grazed off of Nolan Patrick there to go in. But his first one, you could tell, was tipped right away, and that's James Van Riemsdyk just standing in front of the net. And that's where a lot of goals are going to be scored, where you can get guys to the net, take the eyes of the goaltender, and create some traffic around him and make things tough for him. And they did that on both of those power plays. And And even the third power play they had in that game, they didn't score on it, but they had a lot of good quality chances and good zone time, and they were getting set up, and that unit was doing a lot of good work there. So Gustafson's a big part of that picture, and I'm interested to see how that carries over into his second game as a Flyer.
Kevin, you mentioned Joel Farabee. I mean, that guy had an incredible first game of the season. I don't think anybody could have hoped for that kind of game from him. Not that he's a bad player or anything, but I mean, to go out and have that kind of massive impact on the game, especially offensively, that's got to be impressive. I think the biggest question is that the kind of output that he can do more often than one night in a season?
I think he can do it more than one night in a season. I don't think it should be expected to be a regular thing. You know, he's not going to have 4-point games every night like, say, a Connor McDavid would or something like that. But he's got the chops for it. I mean, this is what he was kind of advertised as when he was in his draft year and the Flyers were interested in him. Is he's a guy on the winger. He's a guy who, can go to the net and be a scorer because he has a decent shot and he's got an opportunity to get around the net and be in scoring areas a lot. He's not the guy who has to be the responsible defensive player, even though he does get some penalty kill time even in situations. He's able to play in all situations. I'm just really impressed by the way he's come out and kind of, as I mentioned when I was on Wednesday with the other guys on the Sports Bash, it's a situation where he kind of one key issue with his game, which isn't something that's on the ice itself. It's his weight. It was his strength and being able to play at this level with bigger guys. And it showed right away. It showed with this way that he's able to go out there and win puck battles and be in good positioning and not get rattled so easily by these other guys. And that's what I saw in this game against Pittsburgh the first time around on Wednesday. Was here's a guy who looks confident, who looks like he knows what he's doing when he goes to the net and is focused on trying to make something happen every single time. I mean, even the goal that Kevin Hayes scored where he gets his third assist of the game as a result of it, he's really putting the puck toward the net to see if Claude Giroux can get a deflection. Instead, it misses Giroux. It hits a pad and goes right out to Hayes. And that's just a smart hockey play. It's getting the puck on net and seeing if something can happen. And sure enough, it was right there for him. And that was the goal that really put things away. So he's an impressive player. He's a smart player. And he's really, because of his age and his youth and his potential, he's only going to keep getting better.
Kevin Durso joining us here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter for all your Flyers and NHL coverage at Kevin_Durso. Check out all of his work over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Flyers versus Penguins tonight at 7 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tim Saunders, Steve Coates calling all the action. Now, Kevin, you mentioned about Kevin Hayes, Farabee, Giroux. That was the top line. We know that Vigneault, he's not afraid to shuffle the lines. He's not afraid to, get a little interesting when it comes to the movement. So now that we're no longer in the bubble, do you feel like that with a longer season now, but not too long of a season? It's kind of like short, but not too short. Do you feel like that he's going to keep with those lines maybe a little longer than he did in the bubble?
I think he will at the start of the season just to continue to see what they have. And not only that, but you look at the way that the first game went. If they're going to win games like that, he won't touch the lineup for most of it. He'll let it play out and wait to see if there's a moment where something really just doesn't look like it's working. So you can look at a lot of different guys in this game. The Hayes line was really good. And they looked good in the scrimmage on Sunday before. They looked good on Wednesday. I wouldn't be touching that line for anything right now because of how well they played in terms of generating opportunities. That being said, the other lines, probably not really at their best until the later stages of the game. The Sean Couturier line was held pretty quiet until the third period when they did finally get on the board and start to generate. They had a couple of opportunities, but they didn't have nearly as many as the Hayes line did. You could say the same thing with the Nolan Patrick line. Nolan Patrick scored on the power play, but at even strength, they spent a lot more time in their own zone. And that was something that Alain Vigneault pointed out in terms of where they spent most of the game and who has the ability to improve a lot when it comes to gaining as the season goes on, where you need to improve as the year goes on. I don't think that any of them look at that 6-3 win. It's going to sound crazy to say when you win by 3 goals and score 6 in a game. I don't think any of them were completely satisfied with that result because of the fact that they still think that they can get better in a lot of other areas, whether it's defensive play or maybe spending time in the offensive zone more often than the defensive zone or whatever it may be. Maybe it's just better passing. I didn't think they were terrible in any particular area, but they definitely have room for improvement. And that's going to be expected when you didn't have any preseason games and you're just getting started, even in a short year. So they'll do what they can to continue to adjust, but I do think they're going to keep a lot of the lines together because I think they do want to develop some form of chemistry with the guys they have.
Now, I know one guy who knows he can do better. That would be Carter Hart, the young goaltender in net. What are some fair expectations for him this year? Because, listen, we all know that one goal, you can basically throw it out the window. Like, Carter Hart's never going to make that mistake ever again in his life in the NHL. So, what is a fair expectation for what a full season, even if it is 50-some games, for Carter Hart is going to look like?
He's had sets high expectations for himself. So it's really interesting to put expectations on him from a different perspective, whether it's from me as a reporter on the team or from any of the fans, because of the fact that, he set such high expectations for himself. He said earlier in training camp, he doesn't want to be just another NHL player. He wants to be the best goalie in the league. And there's a lot of people that think he's on his way to being just that. And, it wasn't his best first game of the season. I don't think that outside of the Crosby goal off of his turnover, I don't think he had any really he didn't have a goal that he shouldn't have allowed. I don't think he had that, but I do think that he's going to look at some of those and say maybe he can play something a little bit better. In a perfect world, he wouldn't have made the turnover and he would have only allowed 2 goals in the game, and it probably would have been fine. His numbers would look really good after that first game, and he'd be just continuing to try to build on them. The thing that I found impressive was after the goal off of that turnover, after they tie the game up in the third period, he looked very sharp from that point on, and he had made some good saves in the first period while the Flyers trailed 1-0. But he made a few really good ones in that third period. Even after the game was out of reach for Pittsburgh, he's making really strong saves that you expect him to make, and it's a result of his positioning, and it's a result of his ability to find the puck so well and track it so well. So those are the things that I saw, and it didn't seem like it took him that long. If he was making those saves by the third period, he's already adjusting the way that you expect him to getting back into a game. So I expect him to continue to get better as the year goes on, because those are the signs I look for from him that show he's right on top of it and he's in his frame of mind that he needs to be in to be as successful as he was a year ago.
I've heard some people who cover the league and know hockey way better than I do say that the team that's going to win the Stanley Cup this year is going to be the team with the best goaltenders. And that's why they keep pointing to Vegas, because they got Lerner and they got Fleury out there. Do the Flyers have the kind of goaltending combo with Hart and Elliott to be able to match and exceed the other teams in the Eastern Conference to get to the Stanley Cup Finals?
I think they do, and I think a big reason for it is that just looking within the division, there's a team in just about all these teams within the division pretty much have some sort of question mark at least at the second goaltender spot that the Flyers don't have. I think Boston's the only one I can think of that has 2 legitimate options that you're going to see on a regular basis. And every other team either has somebody who's really young and inexperienced. Maybe it's a rookie goaltender. Maybe it's a guy who they had to pull in off of a tryout who didn't get signed anywhere during the offseason, who is now there because something else happened. I think of Washington. They just signed Craig Anderson off of his player tryout because of Henrik Lundqvist having to have open heart surgery, and he's out for the year. So the Flyers are in a good spot because they have 2 guys that they've had for a long time that they know that they can trust. Obviously Carter Hart's the leader of that pairing there, but Brian Elliott's capable, and they've been able to trust in him before. They were able to trust in him during playoff games during the summer too. I mean, and by playoff games, I talk about some of the round robin ones too. He played one of the round robin games, and he looked great and helped them win that game. So I think that you can expect him to see a lot of time and to be, and to see both of these guys be key parts of moving forward. And I think it's important to have 2 guys who you can lean on and trust to be capable of getting you that win in any event. Maybe it's a night where you just need to try to put a guy in net and the team in front of you plays outstanding and it doesn't come down to goaltending, but maybe it does. And if it does, then, you need to know you have both guys that can go in and get the job done. And I think the Flyers do. I think that they have that with both Carter Hart and Brian Elliott.
Kevin Durso joining us here on the Boardwalk kind of hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. Flyers versus Penguins coming up at the top of the hour. Hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Kevin, one guy who did not play on Wednesday, will not play tonight, that is Shane Gostisbehere. From what we've been reported, he is out due to COVID-19 protocols. What is his status, and when is the expectation for him to at least get back to practice?
they're all kind of unknown answers right now. His status is the same as it was on Wednesday. He's still on that list, so he's still not available to participate. And realistically, we don't know exactly when he'll be able to come back. He'll be able to come back whenever he's off of that list, and that's a day-to-day operation in the NHL right now. Is the people who are on that list could be on there for several days in a row, or they could be on there for a day or two and then come off because something is revealed about their situation that makes them eligible to come off, whether it's an amount of quarantine time or just maybe it's a number of negative tests in a row or whatever it may be. So for right now, he's not available, and it's kind of unfortunate because, now I think we know that the answer to everything was that he was not injured in any way. So that's not why he's missing time. So his whole thing about coming back out of an offseason with a clean slate and being fully healthy and being ready to help this team by making contributions himself, I think all of that still stands. The problem is he can't get on the ice right now. And I'm sure he wants to. I'm sure this is eating at him because he was in a position to be around and be part of it. He very well could have potentially played in a game like this tonight if they wanted to make a small change defensively and give him a look if he was able to come off of that list and have practiced a little bit. But he hasn't been able to do anything for over or almost a week now. By tomorrow or Sunday, it'll have been a week. And that's unfortunate for him because for right now, he's falling behind as everybody else gets game action, gets accustomed to playing in a game situation again. So for right now, his situation is what it is, and we're just going to have to wait patiently to see when he's able to come off that list.
I know the NHL's COVID protocols, as you've written about at 97.3 ESPN.com, are among the most exhaustive and very stringent that there are among all the team sports. But I think it's a positive thing to point out, and it's something they brought up on NHL Network the other night, which is initially 27 positive tests among players, but 17 of them were all on the same team at Dallas Stars. So it seems like as a whole, the league does have a good grasp on how to handle this COVID-19 situation as they move forward.
Yeah, I think so. And, here's an example of it for you, too, that out of the 27 tests, I believe that going into training camp, the New York Rangers didn't have Mika Zibanejad for the start of camp, and they did have him by the end of camp, and he confirmed when he came back. That's the reason. I was positive, I was out, and now I'm back. I've made a recovery, and I'm back. And if that's one of the 27 players, and he's made a full recovery and he's back, because they measured it over a 2-week testing span. If that's the case, then it shows that they're able to get players out of a certain situation quick enough that it doesn't affect everybody else. Now, in Dallas, that's obviously a different story. They had a full-on outbreak, and you're seeing the results of what happens when it happens. But I don't think that – hopefully we won't see that too much, in terms of where one team has that many problems. I'm sure there will be the occasional positive test that pops up for just about every team in the league. It's going to probably happen at some point because this is not a bubble at this point in time. But – I do think that if you can keep the numbers low and the percentages of positive testing low, then there's not going to be any reason why you can't continue to press on. This is why the teams have the taxi squad. This is why teams are going to have the access they do to AHL rosters when the season for them begins in a few weeks, because you want to be able to have flexibility to get guys into your lineup if something like this happens. And as long as the numbers stay relatively low, then you shouldn't be seeing postponements. This is not going to be like the NBA where if a team can't dress enough players that they're going to still make them somehow play the game. I think they're going to pull the plug on anything when it's an outbreak like they did with the Dallas Stars situation, and they're going to make sure that teams can ice a full team close to what is normally expected of them, and maybe they miss one guy here or there, but that's pretty much it.
Kevin, before I let you go, I always appreciate your time and insights here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, you can follow Kevin Durso on Twitter at Kevin_Durso for all your Flyers and NHL coverage. They came out with the announcement from NBC Sports that the Flyers-Penguins opening night matchup was the most watched NHL regular season game on record for their network. It was up 29% off of last year. But the bigger deal to me is not just, it's record-breaking. It's the fact that when you combine the people watching on television and the people watching on streaming, you're talking about what is projected to be over 1 million people watching a game at 5:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday. I remember watching those games when they were in the bubble back in August when more people were at home than there are right now. And they weren't getting those numbers on a night-to-night basis. So what does it say to have such a huge viewership for a Penguins-Flyers game at 5:30 on a Wednesday for the NHL's opening night?
Yeah, it says a lot, and I think obviously it says that at the very least both markets that are involved, both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, had a desire to watch this when it came back. Alain Vigneault had a really interesting answer to a question regarding this prior to or in this morning anyway, when they were getting ready for the game tonight, and he said, it wasn't really when they came back and started everything in the bubble. It's not a time that people are accustomed to hockey being on. It's the summer. People go out there. Maybe people are out golfing during the day and they're not thinking about the games that are on. Maybe you got people who are still in baseball mindset because it's a summer sport. This is the time for hockey. Hockey's normally on at this time of the year every year, and to have it back like this, I think everybody was thinking about it more often. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know. I find it a little bit hard to believe that not everybody was in tune with it when it was playoff games and things like that in the summer, but nonetheless, it was a weird situation. It wasn't in home arenas. It was in a bubble. It kind of felt completely unique to the situation. There's at least a little bit more normalcy to this, to playing in your home arena, to watching the team on their home ice, and to watching them maybe in their normal market time. The 5:30 start's a rarity, and I'll give you that for sure, that's an interesting dynamic to that number, is that many people watched a game that started in the early evening hours, not at the normal 7 o'clock time. But I think that does say something to the fact that it's just a normal time when hockey is on, when we expect the Flyers to be on, and I think there is certainly a demographic that waited a long time for this moment to happen and for this team to be back, and that's why so many people gave it so much attention, because it's been a long wait for it to come back. It's been a longer wait for a lot of people around this sport than in other sports. Basketball's been back for almost a month now, and the fact that you have them waiting for hockey to kind of figure out their situation to get back. Football's been going on for a while. That's now hitting the playoff period for them, and now you're going to start to see when football's over, it's going to be this in the NBA that takes center stage for the time being, because that's the sports that they're going to be on. So I wouldn't be surprised if the ratings keep getting better, especially if we get some really good hockey here with these rivalry games and these matchups within the divisions, because it's going to be exciting as the season goes on, how teams react to playing each other so often and how teams continue to progress as the season goes on, knowing that every game matters so much.
He's Kevin Durso. Check out his Game 2 of the season preview between the Flyers and the Penguins right now on 97.3 ESPN.com. Also, you can read the preview on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app and keep the app on. You can listen to Game Night as well as the Flyers game coming up at 7 o'clock tonight on 97.3 ESPN. As all guests, Kevin Durso joined us on the Boardwalk kind of hotline, our Flyers insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. Great stuff, Kevin. And I'm sure you and I will be talking often as the Flyer season progresses, as it's now finally in full swing.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it all year, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Flyers Penguins at the top of the hour right here on your home for Flyers hockey, 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to the text board coming up, 609-403-0973. Plus, we'll be giving you my FanDuel Sportsbook picks for the weekend. Not just the NFL, but I'm going to give you some UFC picks because UFC took a few-week hiatus. They hit a reset button. They're back on Fight Island. They're on network television tomorrow afternoon on ABC. So you can get all the action. You don't need ESPN Plus for these fights. It's on network television tomorrow on ABC. The first time there's been an MMA fight on ABC in its network history, and the first time that an MMA event has been on one of the big three, CBS, NBC, and ABC, in over 12 years. Big deal for the UFC. So I'll give you my picks for those fights a little bit later. Coming up next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle City.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, the text board is open. We went to the conversation at 609-403-0973. Of course, Game Night being brought to you by my friends over at weightliftinghq.com. Use promo code RADIO10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Bench and squat racks, kettlebells, dumbbells, cardio and fitness machines, resistance bands, and more. everything you need to get your 2021 goals in line with my friends over at weightliftinghq.com, located right here in South Jersey. They will deliver right to your home, help you get set up, and everything you need with the most competitive prices you can find anywhere at weightliftinghq.com. Use code radio10 for 10% off your entire order. That's radio10 at weightliftinghq.com. So before I give you my picks for the football weekend, of course, we're going to get into all 4 games. I'll give you my picks for all 4 games. Obviously, I and everybody else did not get the Steelers game right. Nobody got the Steelers game right. But we did get a couple winners for you last week. We did cover on the Colts and Washington game, so that was always a fun time. And you can get in all the fun as well with my friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Listen, I got the perfect way to make the football playoffs more exciting this weekend, and it's called a same-game parlay, and it's only available on FanDuel Sportsbook. A same-game parlay lets you combine the multiple bets from a single game into a bigger win during the football playoffs. So, like, for example, last week I told you if you would have combined the Colts-Bills over with the Colts spread, you would have had a winner. That is a same-game parlay. It's one of many ways you can win with FanDuel Sportsbook. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and get signed up using my promo code Hennig. That's promo code HENNIG when you sign up with FanDuel Sportsbook for you to get in on all the action. If you're still a current customer, if you are a current customer of FanDuel Sportsbook, you can check out all the same game parlays right now with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 or to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be a resident of New Jersey or PA. All right, so a couple things I want to hit on here. First of all, same game parlay for this weekend. So I'm going to give you a same game parlay for the Bills-Ravens game. I think the Bills win this game. I'm not in love, okay, with them winning this game, but I think they will. Here is a same game parlay for you. I'm going to go first half total points under 24.5. I'm going to go, that's one leg of the parlay, because I think the weather is going to slow these teams down for the first half. I think you're going to see more offense in the second half than in the first half. So as a result, I'm going to say second half, take the over 23.5. And then the third leg of your parlay is with FanDuel. They will give you same game parlay insurance as long as you have at least 3 legs on that parlay. So take Josh Allen over 296.5 passing yards. Why? Because Josh Allen, 8 games this year, he threw for over 300 yards. And in 2 of those other games, he didn't throw for 300. He threw for 284 and 288 against the Raiders and the Cardinals. Both of those were road games. The majority of his home games, he threw for over 300 yards. Meanwhile, he's going up against a Ravens team that they have 2 top-tier corners, but they weren't always the most dominant passing team on the year. There were games that they did allow some passing yards this year, particularly to the Chiefs, 385, 355 to the Browns. So if you have a quarterback who can sling it, you can get some yards against this Baltimore Ravens pass defense. That's a same game parlay for you right there. Like I said, I am going the Bills over the Ravens in that game personally. I'm also picking the Chiefs outright to win over the Browns. I think the Packers handle business against the Ravens. And I also have I feel like I don't know why I'm even saying this, but I'm going against Brady. I think if the Saints defense that we saw last week shows up again this weekend, they're going to beat the Bucs for the 3rd time. I promise you a couple of UFC picks. A phenomenal co-main and main event, Carlos Condit versus Matt Brown. I'm saying that fight will not go the distance. If you parlay that with the Max Holloway, Kelvin Kattar fight going the distance, that's plus 211 odds. If you were to throw $10 on that, you'll win over $21. So I think the Holloway-Kattar fight goes the distance. I think the Condit-Brown fight does not go the distance. Listen, Condit and Brown, they love to throw leather, and Holloway almost goes the distance almost every single fight. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow for a special edition of Sports by Saturday after college basketball.